If your algorithm is anything like mine right now, it is pushing the country life. It's telling you, get out of the city, move out of the suburbs, move out to the country, to a small town, to some land where it's peaceful and safe. And a lot of that's true. My husband and I live on 200 acres in Missouri. We were both pretty much born and raised here. Well, we grew up like 15 minutes apart from each other in neighboring small towns, and somehow our paths never crossed until he was 30 and I was 20, but that's a story for another day. Anyway, we're both small town country people, and we love it. This is the life for us. We tried living in town once. We will never do it again. We made it 1 year, and then my husband almost knocked a guy out. Like there were some neighbor fights and feuds and stuff going on, which I think is hilarious. Maybe I shouldn't laugh at that, but that's just what happened. Like country folk just don't get along well in town. So we are here on my husband's family farm, where we will stay forever, Lord willing. You never know, but Lord willing, we will be here forever. However, I am not one of those people who believes that, just because the country life is the life for me, that everybody should live this way. If you've ever read The City Mouse and the Country Mouse, that's one of my favorite stories to read to my kids. And I think a lot of people these days could stand to read that story because country life can be glamorized and it can be made out to be more of just an aesthetic. But then, people move out to the country and oftentimes they find out it's not cracked up to be all they thought it would be. And so maybe you've watched videos before, people talking about reasons to move out to the country, out to land, to start homesteading. This is going to be a little bit of a different video because I'm actually going to give you 5 reasons why you might want to think twice before making that decision. We'll run through these reasons pretty quickly, and then I have some updates for you guys around our farm. So the 5 reasons are: number 1, logistics; number 2, infrastructure; number 3 goes along with number 2, the costs are probably higher than you think; number 4, isolation; and number 5, local culture. So let's run through these really quickly. Number 1, logistics. If you live in the suburbs or in the city, you are used to things being convenient and being close. And when you move out into the country, that's just not the case. For us, everything is like 15 minutes away. We do have a little town that's like 7 minutes away, and there's a little grocery store, there's a Dollar General, a bank, and some stuff. But beyond that, then everything's 15, 20 minutes away. So that is just very normal for me. We've lived that like that our whole life. So it's not frustrating. It's not an inconvenience to me to have to drive 20 minutes minimum to get to anywhere I want to go. But for specialty things like maybe a homeschool co-op or, something that's just not your everyday thing or group or place, you're going to have to drive further. Maybe, the church that you go to is probably going to be further. And honestly, that might not sound like a big deal, but when that becomes your everyday reality and you didn't grow up that way, you're not used to it, it can become a really big deal really quickly. I know this has been a complete break, like a complete bust for people. I know people who maybe during COVID, moved out to the country, and it was this point, the logistics, that they didn't last long. They actually ended up moving back into the suburbs once things kind of died down, and it was the drive. They just weren't cut out for that, and I totally get it. Okay, point number 2 is infrastructure. We're actually going to talk about this a little bit more later in the video as I show you some updates around our farm, because I have some updates that have to do with infrastructure. This is a big one. People do not think about this when they want to move to the country, get some chickens, maybe get a dairy cow. All of the work that needs to be done to make sure that you have fencing, buildings, roads, everything that you need to make a place livable and workable, and that is not cheap. Many moons ago, when I was first learning the importance of reading ingredient labels on more than just food, so on toiletries, skincare, beauty products, on all the things, it was kind of overwhelming because the crunchy movement just hadn't really taken off. There weren't many clean alternatives. So the easiest thing for me to do was just to get rid of everything in my house and try to DIY everything from vinegar and baking soda, which You can do a lot with vinegar and baking soda, but it can only go so far. There are things that, there are jobs that vinegar just can't do, especially when it comes to beauty products and especially fragrances. Vinegar perfume just isn't it. However, now, like 15 years later, we are living in the era of clean alternatives. They are abundant. And when it comes to clean skincare and fragrances, Dime Beauty is my go-to. Dime is a clean, cruelty-free beauty brand with gentle skincare products and hormone-safe fragrances. Dime products are made to deliver results without harsh chemicals, and they are 100% transparent about all of the ingredients that go into their products. So their fragrances, for example, are made from natural ingredients and organic sugarcane alcohol rather than alcohol SD40, which is used in a lot of perfumes and does have harsh effects. So with Dime, you get high-end, wearable, layered scents without the scary side effects. Dime has several scents available in their line of natural fragrances, but right now they have 2 of their top sellers available as a signature scent duo, 7 Summers and Dans Le Bois. I don't speak French, but I do know that that means in the woods. So Dans Le Bois is your more woodsy scent with cedarwood and like undertones, like light floral undertones. This is more of a bold, earthy scent, and 7 Summers is a very like light and airy and happy, creamy vanilla lavender scent. So this is more of like an everyday, and I love this. This is one of my favorites, along with, let's see, Dans Le Bois, 7 Summers, and I think if I had to pick 3, my other favorite of Dime's fragrances would be Core Memory. I really love Core Memory. These travel size scents are $25 each, so the set is worth $50, but right now you can get them for $35, which makes them the perfect gift. We'll put all the details for Dime's signature scent duo in the description below the video. Just tap the more button and check it out. So point number 2 about infrastructure leads into point number 3. The costs of country living are probably going to be a lot higher than you think. And yes, a lot of that is infrastructure, especially if you're going to start with raw land. I know a lot of people think, oh, we'll start with raw land, it's cheaper. Well, first of all, land is just not cheap right now. I know it's cheaper in some places, but it's just not cheap in general if you want really good land. And that's another thing, you need to know how to identify good land. You need to know what you want your land to do for you. How much, open pasture you want, if you want woods, if you want a water source. There's just a lot to consider when you're looking. And if you don't know what you're looking for, then you could end up with a piece of land that just doesn't serve the purposes you thought it would. But if you're going to start with raw land, then you've got a ton of money you're going to have to invest to get the infrastructure you need. First and foremost, a road. And you're going to see in this video that we're going to be working on a road, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But other costs, aside from the land itself, aside from the infrastructure, just include the cost of doing the things you want to do. So most people these days, when they think of moving out to land, they want to do some kind of homesteading. And honestly, it takes a lot of money to get started. It's oh man, like chickens are not cheap. I remember 8 years ago when I first got into chickens, 8 or 9 years ago, you could go to the feed store and they were like $1 a piece. It was cheap to get started. Now that it's caught on and with inflation and everything, that is not the case anymore. You're looking at $5 a chick, sometimes more. It's crazy expensive. And that is true for everything when it comes to farming and gardening and homesteading supplies. You can buy a lot, you can make do with used things and be creative and buy things off Facebook Marketplace. And you can get, save a lot of money that way. But things are just a lot more expensive now than they were even 8-10 years ago. So I think the cost often surprises people. They envision the eggs rolling in and the raw milk, but they don't factor in the cost for that organic chicken feed and, setting up the fencing and everything for the dairy cow, the cost of a dairy cow itself. I got the cow you see here running, that's Jersey Sally. She was my first dairy cow. And I got her for $700 as a yearling heifer. Now that is just not going to happen. You're going to pay minimum $2,000, probably more like $4,000 for a Jersey. So yeah, as homesteading catches on, the costs are going up. So that's definitely something to think about. Point number 3 is that it's going to be a lot more expensive than you think it is. I could probably just say, as a rule of thumb, like put together a little sheet of how much you think it's going to cost you to get started, and then double that, and that's what it's going to be. So, point number 4 is isolation. Isolation versus peace. So, I love living out, not by things, just kind of like out in the country. It does not bother me that there are not many people around. But then again, we live on the farm with my in laws. So, we do have 3 generations living here on our farm. And that helps because there's interaction there. We do have some neighbors, and since my husband's family has been here for many generations, they know them all very well. So this is going to lead into the next point uh, about local culture, but there's just very high trust and just good, solid relationships. So even though I'm not around people all the time, I don't feel lonely. And a lot of it is personality too. I think you really need to ask yourself, um, do you thrive being really like alone all day for most days? Of course, you have your children and maybe your spouse, or if you're with, your multiple generations or siblings and going in on property or something, that's different. But, some people thrive being more secluded, and some people really need to be around people. And I just have news for you. If you're wanting to do this homesteading thing, and especially if you're wanting to get out on land requires a lot of maintenance and care and time. Like for us, I mean, that's pretty much what we do with our spare time is we work around the farm, maintaining and building and working on things. We do fun stuff. Like we don't not have a life. Yes, we do fun stuff, but it just takes a lot of work. And so if you're thinking like, oh, well, I want to do this homesteading thing, but still continue, maybe let's say you live in the suburbs and you want to still continue several nights a week. You have like a book club and a Bible study and then a mom's night and yada, yada, yada. And then you do story hour at the library and you're used to having that packed schedule. Where is the homesteading going to fit in? Like, where is the country life going to fit in? I think a lot of people think they can do both, and you really can't. But for me, that is what I like about living out in the country is I like slow living. I like not committing to those things in town. I leave my house like 3 times a week, and that's pretty reliable. Like once for church, once for co-op, and once because one of our kids has an activity that I do. I take them to and from, but my husband does a lot of the activities with the boys. So yeah, 2, 3 times a week I leave the house. I'm great with that. I like my slow mornings, my sunrises and sunsets, and just being home. But I think for a lot of people that would actually drive them crazy. And so that's something you need to think about. So here we are putting in a road between our farm and the new property that we purchased back in April. That new property borders our farm, and this road used to be functional. This used to be the county road that wound through our farm and up to that property, but at some point in decades past, this ceased to be a county road. And then, just from not being in use, there was a lot of erosion and this massive ditch essentially formed. I don't even know what to call it. So the road has not been in use for decades. So here you see that this is John operating the Mini here. He is tearing up concrete from an old building that had collapsed, and they're using that as fill. He and his dad are working on this, using it as landfill to put the road back in. And so this goes back to that infrastructure piece. And I guess this leads into point number 5, which is local culture. It can be very difficult to break in to a small town, to a rural area, to the culture, because many of these people have been here since their ancestors settled the land, and they have very high trust with each other, but they're pretty wary of outsiders. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think it's good to keep like tight bonds, and it's definitely the case for our small town that we live in. But that comes with a lot of perks when you do are able to break into a small town, because you get to know people, and People will help you out with things, and then you help them out with things. And if you need a piece of equipment and you don't have it, like $100,000 piece of equipment, well, if you have built up trust with somebody who has that piece of equipment, they will probably loan it to you. And then, you'll just owe them something, right? It's not like you're like writing it down, keeping score, but that's just how things work. You help each other out. And so that Mini, that is not something we own. We own the skid loader that you saw working on the road. But the Mini, yeah, that is something that my husband borrowed. And so that's definitely I love it. I love like that we're established in a small town. We're part of that local culture with family and friends to where we can help people out. They can help us out. And, we've got a lot of the skills to do these things ourselves and save a lot of money. But like I said, it's just not easy to break in on. So I hope this wasn't like a doom and gloom video. It's just something to really think about before you flee the city, because that's what the algorithm always says for people who like homesteading type videos, is like, get out of the city. But I just think it's worth pausing and really thinking long and hard about. But if you do decide that this is the way for you, getting out of the city, getting out to land, to the country, my biggest piece of advice would be don't do it alone. Make sure that you can get connected wherever you go, whether that's moving with family or with, a group of like-minded families, or moving somewhere where there is a really established parish and you can connect with people. Because if you have a really good, solid community, you can overcome just about every point on this list and you can really thrive. After all, that's how our ancestors did it. My ancestors came across the ocean with a group of 12 Catholic families and settled the town where I grew up. And here we are 200 and some years later, and I am sitting here recording this video with no plans to leave this area. So it can be done. Just, think twice before doing it alone.